Jill Nussinow, also known as the Veggie Queen. Welcome to the Urban Pharmacy Podcast, my friend.
Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here and chatting with you. You're actually one of my favorite people online, even though we've never met.
Oh, thanks. That means a lot. Well, you are one of my faves too. Like you and I did a bundle. We did the Ultimate Weight Loss Bundle with Chef AJ last year or this year. I don't even know. Time is a funny thing, but that's how we connected. And I was just like, you're one of those people that I feel like I've known for a long time. And you just have a really awesome soul. And I feel like the way that you live is holistic. And that's what I like to teach people. And you take an approach, which we're going to talk about. That's just more, I feel like if we were to look at Jill's life from a bird's eye view, you're doing the things that, it's a cohesive way of living. And that's just from the outside looking in, that's how I feel you're living your life. So I want to talk about that today and get some tips and tricks from you. But before we get started, can you just tell me like your journey to now? It's probably, a lot, but like what really kind of kickstarted your passion to live a more health-driven lifestyle?
Oh, that's such a good question. And I haven't really thought about it except, well, it's kind of goes to a funny part of my life where my father was an attorney. He wanted me to go to law school and I did everything. I took the LSATs, I applied, I got in, and I thought, I don't think this is for me. And I was very interested in nutrition. So I was like way ahead of the curve. And I thought, I'm going to go to school. I'm going to get a degree, a master's in nutrition and dietetics. Which did not really register with my brain what that entailed because I got a degree in business. So I had about actual zero science classes. So when I went to get my master's degree, I had to take all these science classes that most people who were getting the degree already had. So I decided to do that. And it was very interesting. If I had to do it over again, I probably wouldn't go exactly that route, but it was kind of one of the only ways I could get into the nutrition field. But I would say, 75% to 90% of what I learned is irrelevant in terms of people and their health and eating. And I think that's changed now, but that was kind of my path. The other part of that, and I should go back, is I decided to become a vegetarian when I was a teenager. Okay. And the reason is I didn't like meat. I really didn't like meat. And a friend of mine said, I'm going to become a vegetarian. And I said, great, I will do it too. And my mother did not get freaked out about this, even though she served meat almost every night. And so it was kind of a bumpy journey, but at that time I ate cheese. I think I ate a lot of like grilled cheese sandwiches, but I just it just kind of didn't resonate with me. Related to that, my grandfather had a massive heart attack in his 40s, and he was one of the first people to go to Duke University and be on the Kempner rice diet. So my grandmother always cooked his food and brought it with him. He did eat chicken, but she made always all these incredible vegetables and baked potatoes and things that I loved. So I just kind of always was drawn to that. And I was definitely not the kid that you had to say you have to eat your peas or green beans or anything. I just really loved them. And so I think it, just kind of I moved along and just kind of did that. Just like intuitively, which it took me many, many years to realize that I had incredible intuition.
Yeah. Ooh, we can talk about intuition all day. I feel like. Okay. So, women tend to have a really much better intuition than men, but I don't even know why I said that out loud, but I feel like that has been like kind of shown. All right. So then you decided, what did you do after you got that degree?
Well, after I got the degree, and while I was getting it, I had a friend and she was a vegetarian. We're the only two out of a class of like 25 to 40 who were vegetarian. So they always thought we were really weird. I did an internship, a traineeship at the University of Miami Medical Center, which was fascinating. It was all about inborn errors of metabolism and genetic anomalies. And it was all about babies and kids who had all kinds of issues going on, but it was part of an interdisciplinary team, which I loved. And so after I did that, I thought, well, all, healthcare should be just like this, but really there's only like, I think it's 10 or 14 centers around the country that do what we did, where there was a team of like 20 to 30 people who actually looked at people and said, hey, what's going on? So I when I got out, when I had been doing all that stuff with infants and new mothers and kids, I decided that I would work for myself and I would specialize in new mothers, infants, and kids, because new mothers are the perfect time to like get women to think about like, what are you doing? Because now you're not only responsible for you are responsible for another human being. So I think it really changes what you do and what you think. Now, I was not a mother at that time. I really didn't get all of it, but I got that. And I knew that I could help women at that time and babies who had issues and little kids. And it was, let me say, it was a challenging time for a young dietitian in Los Angeles, because doctors did not like really get what a dietitian could do. So I spent a lot of time doing that. Really loved doing it. And then after I did that, and I did it for many, many years, but in that process, a few years in, I kind of needed to make money, and I worked for an HMO and I did all kinds of things. And it was then that I realized that I could teach. And I taught classes and I developed classes. And then a friend who had been teaching at Cal State Northridge said, would you like to take over my nutrition class? And I said, sure. And I've been teaching ever since. And it's something that I think comes fairly naturally to me, that I love doing. I have to say I don't love it quite as much doing it through Zoom, but I still get something out of it because I'm still able to impart information. And then I taught at Santa Rosa Junior College in the culinary department for 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was fascinating. I loved it. I taught nutrition just a few years, didn't really love it because I don't relate to nutrition in terms of nutrition. And I saw my students who I was teaching nutrition to roll their eyes. And even before that, when I took over that teaching, I thought, oh yeah, everybody's going to come. They're going to be so interested in nutrition. And they really took it as like a class that they thought they could breeze through, because they didn't realize they were going to need to know, they would have to read and they'd have to be able to do math. And it was a little sciencey. So my students really didn't like resonate with what the teachings were. So when I had the choice, I was like, I'd rather do food. And so I spent all that time teaching people about nutrition through food without probably using the word nutrition.
Wow.
Yeah. And I thought, if I can teach you to cook kale and Brussels sprouts and, what a cruciferous vegetable is, everything's going to be fine. You don't need to know how many milligrams or micrograms or any other thing. But if you know how to cook these foods and eat them, you are good.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So, okay. So you've been teaching a long time. You've been into food and you have written some books. Are they all recipe books?
They're all recipe books. So my first one is like, my first baby. It's called The Veggie Queen: Vegetables Get the Royal Treatment. This is my thinnest book, but I think my most loved for me, because it has 37 little stories that I share about just things. Like one is called something about an eggplant, and a friend who said, oh, I bought an eggplant, an organic eggplant at the market, and it just wasn't very good. And I said, well, that's because it's January.
Yeah.
And you can't get good eggplant in January. And so there's a lot of teaching and these fun little stories. So I love that book. It has just over 100 recipes. It's just a sweet book. And it was my first foray into self-publishing, which at the time was nightmarish, but I did really love the process. So I did that. And then I wrote a book that was for the pressure cooker. And then the Instant Pot came along, and the book just took off. It's called, see if I have it here. It's called The New Fast Food. It has cooking charts in it. And people loved this book. Like, I didn't really get the whole Instant Pot thing. Somebody had to talk me into using one, because I'd been using a stovetop pressure cooker. And I was like, well, why would I want that? And they're like, well, you could take your dog for a walk and come back and your food would be done. I was like, oh, I love that.
Yeah, you don't have to watch it.
Yeah, I didn't have to watch it. I didn't, I could leave. So I loved that. And then what happened was people found out about this book and got it. So there's that. And then I wrote a very more nutrition oriented book called Nutrition Champs. And each letter stands for a class of ingredients. And this is really based on Joel Fuhrman's work. But he came up with, so this is my Nutrition Champs. He came up with G-bombs, which I think is not good. So mine stands for, I was like, bombs, who wants bombs in their food? And so it stands for cruciferous vegetables, herbs and spices, alliums, mushrooms, peas, beans, and lentils, and seeds and nuts.
Champs. I love it.
I had to I really sat with it for a long time. And I was like, what would be a word that would be good, that would really incorporate this? So I really love that. That's my most nutrition oriented book, and probably the one that sells the least. I'm not sure why. I did it kind of like a bundle, but in print form with 40 something other people. So their recipes are in it, because I didn't want it just to be about me.
Yeah.
So I kind of, thought, oh yeah, that's going to be great. Well, it wasn't as great as I thought, but it's still, I really like the book. It has really great recipes for, everything that falls in those categories, which I consider some of the best foods there are. And then my last book is the most popular one. It's called Vegan Under Pressure. And this book was published by a publisher, and a lot of people call it their Instant Pot Bible.
Wow, I love that.
Which I really appreciate. And I mean, a lot of people know me for that book, but they don't know a lot of other things that I do. So I'm very grateful for the books, and I haven't written another one for a while. It may be coming up time to do it, but I'm not really sure. The whole book world is a very different arm of what I do. And I really love teaching the classes. So I kind of am all over the place, but it's okay with me. However I can get the word out, I like to do that, because I think a lot of food is misunderstood. A lot of what to eat is misunderstood. I think there are a lot of things we can all agree upon, and then there are a lot of things we may disagree upon. But I think the one thing, this is why I love the Veggie Queen, we can probably all agree that more people need to eat more vegetables. Yes, maybe not you and I, but a lot of other people.
Yeah, you're right. That is literally that pretty much across all diet theories, like against, across all diet practices, like that is typically the one thing that everybody can agree on. We can all come together with that.
Yeah. We may not agree that you need to eat more fermented foods. We may not agree, on cutting down on sodium or eating more carbs, but vegetables, they're just part of what people really need to do. Right.
Truth. So another thing that I feel like we could all agree on, Jill, is self-care.
Absolutely. I have to say, I didn't come easily to self-care. And it happened quite a number of years ago. My son was 3, and I'd been working, and I'd been doing all these things. And somebody said, well, maybe you should take this yoga class. And I went to the yoga class and I came home and my husband said, can you go again? And I thought, wow. And I don't know what happened or what he saw, but I was like, yeah, I can do that. And so I went once a week, and then I upped it and I upped it. And I never like connected, oh, this is self-care, but it was time for me. It was like maybe one of the only hour plus in the week that was really all about me.
Yeah.
And then I'd have to say in the last number of years, I've gotten so much better at it. I helped my mother through her passing, and I realized I needed a lot of self-care. And I think that it just made me realize, and I have always realized that if we don't take care of us, we can't be there for other people. And we really need to do it. And I mentioned this to my mother-in-law, who said, and I don't know if it's true or not. She said, well, my mother always told me that if I did things for myself, it was selfish.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, it's selfless.
Right.
Because the more you fill you up, the more you can pass on to other people. And I think that's the message. It's like, even if it's just an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever it is. And related to that, I teach breathing. I teach breathing twice a week. It's 30 to 45 minutes, and it's a beautiful practice. It kind of goes along with yoga, but it doesn't have to. It's on its own. And it's something that once you see, this is the whole thing that people don't get. These are practices, just like cooking once a week and batch cooking. And so you just it's a rhythm, you do it and then you do it again. And with the breathing, the beautiful part is, once you learn how to do it, I could be doing it right now and you'd never know, because I have the tools, right? We just need the tools to fill our life. And so self-care is just like number one. There's still things I don't do that I could do, but the other part of my self-care, which I absolutely adore, is I use a biomat. And I don't know if you know about this.
Yeah, I've heard about them.
Yeah, it's an amethyst far infrared heat mat. And I lie on that almost every night before I go to bed. And it's amazing. And it just heats you from the bottom up. I can't really explain it, but it does something beautiful for your cells. And then when I get into bed, I'm like out. So I have all the tools to have great sleep, which is another really important self-care thing that I did not get for those first 3 years. I did not get good sleep. It was just a very challenging time in my life. But I think I've made up for it now. So,
yeah. So what do you think we can share with the listeners in terms of self-care? Like you said, whether it's 1 hour, whether it's 3 hours, like, what do you think people can do on a daily basis that is the most important in terms of self-care? And self-care looks so different for everyone, right?
yeah.
But like, what are some of your tips?
Well, number one, I do this in my breathing class. When you look in the mirror, smile at yourself. Smiling makes your brain happy. So just even if you think, oh, I really look like that, just smile. Your brain doesn't know what you're thinking. It just knows you're smiling. So that's like one, is that smile, laugh a lot, laugh as much as you can. You can do 5 minutes or 2 minutes of laughter. I think part of self-care for me actually is giving to others. So like I do this silly thing on Facebook. I like to wish everybody a happy birthday. It just makes me feel good. Gratitude. I want to read you something that I just copied about gratitude, because I think it's amazing. The relationship between joy and gratitude is an intriguing upward spiral. And that's from Brene Brown. And I just find that amazing. And I think having a gratitude practice, whether you write it on paper or you say it or you think it, makes such a difference, because you can be like, oh, it's not a good day. Or you can say, it's a good day. There may have been a thing or two that didn't work right, but this is a great day. I'm alive. I'm breathing. The, sun is shining. The rain is coming, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I think being grateful for even the smallest things makes a huge difference in our body and our being. So that's one. And if I had just one thing, I couldn't really choose just one thing, but, stretch yourself either literally or figuratively, and take 5 minutes to breathe, to just really breathe, learn a couple of breathing practices and just do them. It changes what you think, how you feel, lowers your cortisol levels, keeps your blood pressure in check. And I think for me, it just makes me feel so good that and I don't want to do anything that doesn't feel good, although I do get challenged in my yoga classes and I will do things, but I really want to do the things that make me feel really good.
Yeah.
And then eat well. That's like number one, eat well. Like some people think that I think people sabotage themselves and punish themselves by eating not good food. And it doesn't work, because people will be, here's one thing. Somebody said to me, well, I'm on vacation. I'm like, but your body is never on vacation.
Oh my God.
And so it's like, so to do it regularly, like eat well. And so if you think of those Champs foods and include those every day or as often as you can, it makes a huge difference in how you feel. And, there's just, it's interesting because people are like, well, you have so much energy. I'm like, well, we're supposed to feel like this, I think.
Yeah.
Like we're supposed to have a lot of energy. We're supposed to feel good. Like if I woke up and I didn't feel good, I would be like, oh, and that happens occasionally. And I'm like, what is going on? And it's a time to check in. So, and some people don't get how bad they feel until they start feeling better.
That's how it was for me. Like, I knew that I wasn't like super happy and that I was definitely uncomfortable in my body, but I also thought that was like normal. I just thought that like it was normal to have to want to lay down because my stomach hurt after pretty much every meal. And that it was kind of normal to like gain weight as I aged. Like, no. And like I had it was just a whole new life. Like once I started eating exclusively plants, I felt like I was 5 again. Like there was my sister was just like, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, nothing. This is like, I'm alive again.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what my life would look like if I didn't do this.
Yeah. And I think for some people, who are like, well, I'm not going to give up meat. I'm like, that's okay.
Yeah.
Eat 80% plants, eat 90% plants, and it's interesting because my husband is not a big plant eater. He will eat some of what I make, and I make him smoothies every day, which probably has kept him alive.
Yeah.
And it's a funny story about that, but like, he just won't eat kale. I grow sprouts. He doesn't want to eat sprouts. I'm like, okay, I'm going to figure out how to get this in you. Yeah. But when I first made him smoothies, he came over to the blender and he said to me, is that kale?
Oh my God.
Terrified, right? Yeah. Terrified. Is that kale? And I said, no, because it was collards that day. Oh. So I didn't have to lie. And he's been drinking smoothies ever since. I would say it's probably been more than 10 years, and he absolutely loves them now. But that's pretty much the only way I'm getting kale into him. Although he did share with me one day, he went to an event and he has become mostly vegetarian. And he said, there was nothing for me to eat, so I had kale salad. And he said, and it was really good.
Oh, I love that. Oh my God. Like some of the best things have been my husband, like, just over this whole journey of him, like, he gets mad now if he can't have oatmeal in the morning. Like that is what he wants. And that's what his gut wants. And when he doesn't get that, he's like, I'm really ready for my oats. So it just cracks me up. It really makes me happy.
My husband eats I make a mix of oats, steel cut oats, millet, and buckwheat.
Yum.
And that's what he's been eating. And he was very resistant recently. He goes, didn't I used to eat this every day? I'm like, yes. And he said, okay, I'm ready. I'm like, good.
Love it. I love it. So we can do forms of self-care in so many different ways. We can breathe, we can eat well, which really should be, you and I agree, like that should be the number one priority. And I think that what happens if we start eating well, Jill, is that, and we get off the processed foods, we reduce the amount of animal products that we're eating, reduce the inflammatory dairy, like our brain works in a different way. So then once we get the good foods going in, our brain is like, oh gosh, I really do matter. Like we think differently, right?
Absolutely. I have a little complicated chart about what happens in your gut and how it relates to your brain.
Wow.
And how a stressor can change all of that. But the opposite, how getting them connected really helps. And what we need to remember is 70% of our immune system's in our gut. And so if you're feeding your gut the right things, you're getting the right messages to your brain. And your brain is happier and your brain is healthier and it's firing better. And you're like, oh, and so it's that connection. And then we have the heart connection. So we have the heart, the brain, the gut, like it all works together to the point where you're like, yeah, I want to take care of myself. There's no like outside forces taking care of you. It's you taking care of you. And the more you do that, the better you feel.
Yes.
It really does affect your brain. And I really think the research is going to continue to show that people who have brain issues like Alzheimer's, that it is related to food, that it is related to lifestyle. It's not just one thing, but food is like number one. And if you take a look at the lifestyle medicine doctors, who are some of the smartest doctors out there, some of whom I'm like, oh, you finally woke up to food. This is great. I've been doing this a long time, but I'm happy they are because people are listening. They don't just think about, food. They think about stress. They think about sleep. They think about all the things in your life that really matter, and relationships really matter, because isolation is what kills people, not feeling connected. And the connections can be very big or they can be very small, which is one of the things that's really interesting about social media, is some people will be like, oh, I'm not part of that. And what they don't realize is you can connect with other people who feel the same way that you do. But a lot of people take it the opposite way. Like, I could never be like her. It's like, it's not about that. It's not about a competition. It's about, hey, I'm here. I'm there for you, and I think that's a really important thing. And it's one of the things I do in breathing is there's a couple of phrases where we connect our brain with our body, with what we hear and feel and see, which is our brain, like, I am aware and I am with myself. And we don't always have that connection with ourselves. And I think eating well gives us that connection where we're like, oh yeah, like if I were a car, what kind of car would I be? I don't have to be a Maserati. I can be a Toyota, but would I put water in that tank? No, I would put good food and good fuel in that tank. So let me be the best car. And it's such a not a good analogy, but people can relate because a lot of people have cars. But and some people take much better care of their car than they do their body. Right. And they can't connect. Oh yeah, like if my car takes me around and I don't have a good body, it's not going to be helpful. But we really need to fuel ourselves on every level: love, connection, respect, our heart, our gut, our brain. It's one body. People be like, well, I have a problem with, it's like, no, you have a problem with your body. Yeah. You don't have just a problem with your gut. You don't have just inflammation, which is huge, right? But it's everything. If your gut doesn't work well, your brain doesn't work well. That was a long answer, right?
No, everything is interconnected. And again, like I said earlier at the beginning of this, like you take a holistic and comprehensive approach to health, which I think is very important. It's the lifestyle medicine, whatever we want to call it. But, it's not just the food. But with that said, Jill, I want to keep talking about food because now that we've reiterated the fact that if you want your life to go pretty well, you got to be in the right mind. And if you don't have the right food, your mind's going to be off. So let's dive into how to help people eat more plants. And let's specifically talk about how to do that with the Instant Pot, because you know how to do that. Okay. And I'm going to tell you how I use the Instant Pot. And then I want you to tell me all the things that I'm missing out on, because I'm sure that there's so many things that I could be using it for, or just ideas that you have to help everybody love their Instant Pot. And if they don't have one yet, they need to get one, because it has changed my life. That's for sure. I think I got mine in 2020. That's just 2 short years ago. So what I do with my Instant Pot is I will use it for like large amounts of sweet potatoes. I will do that. I will use it for large amounts. I will do dried beans. Like, it really has made my life very easy with dried beans. And I am the type of person that would prefer to soak the beans overnight. If I'm really feeling extra, I sprout them because they're just better for you that way. And I just love doing that. But you can, if you need to, just put a bag of beans into the Instant Pot and come back in less than an hour and they're done. And that's a beautiful thing because it's super cheap and affordable. And if, I don't have my son's lunch put together for co-op, I'm like, oh, beans, or if we don't have canned beans or whatever. Like, so beans, I do large amounts of sweet potato in there because I will cut those sweet potatoes up to put in salads, or I will load them later and kind of roast them with like salsa and beans inside. I'll do grains. But I really just have been using it for batch cooking. What do you think the Instant Pot needs to be utilized as? Like, and with?
Well,
there's a saute function. I never do that.
Oh, I almost always, if I'm cooking something, use the saute function first.
Yeah.
And so like let's say I'm cooking, a white bean stew, I'll use the saute function for the onions and garlic. And then I'll turn that off, and then I'll add my beans and whatever else I'm going to add, maybe celery root or parsnips or celery or carrots. And then I will use it for cooking. So I make a lot of one pot meals in my Instant Pot. I do also use it for sweet potatoes, regular potatoes, and whole squash. It's
forgot about that.
Yeah.
I mean, kaboka, forget about it. Like kaboka squash, give me that. Like, that is my meal. I will just be like, I am so very happy. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all the gods above. Like, okay, whatever. Like, I put that whole kaboka squash in there and I'm just like in heaven. It's so
Yesterday I did delicata squash. It was delicious. I had to stop myself from eating both parts, even though I really wanted it.
I eat the whole thing. Just don't stop yourself, Jill. Just do it.
Well, I wanted to eat other foods. So I was like, is this enough for dinner? And I was like, no, it's so delicious. I'll save some for tomorrow. I did add it to what I made. And one of the things I made in there last night was a friend has, she grows tree collards, which are amazing, which are like kale, but even better. And so I made a little dish. It was really delicious. So it was onions, a little garlic, some carrots, and I used the saute function and add a little water. And I added turmeric, cardamom, and cumin seeds. And a little Bragg's liquid aminos and a little water. And I cooked that with the collards and just for 2 minutes under pressure. And then I quick released it. So I do use it for a lot of vegetables. And then I mix that with some black beans that I'd already cooked and a little bit of that delicata squash. And I put in a little tahini because I love tahini. So it was delicious. And so I do a lot of vegetables in there. The thing with vegetables is you have to quick release them. You have to be right there. You
Yeah.
have to know how long to cook them. I've probably cooked every vegetable that you can cook in there. Because when they're like somebody I know grows these amazing Romano beans. They're this long,
Oh,
they're
cool.
delicious. And I'll cut them into pieces and they take 1 to 2 minutes under pressure. I think the key with vegetables is not to add too much liquid.
Yeah.
I will also do 2 things at once. So I might cook lentils in the bottom, right in the liner, put in my rack, put in a dish and cook quinoa with liquid at the same time. So when I'm done, I have
Wow.
quinoa and lentils. I may take those quinoa and lentils and eat them 3 different ways or turn them into burgers or, when I batch, I just want to get it done and have it done, put it in my freezer. I love to make soup in my Instant Pot. And one of the things I really love to do is make stock, which takes like 5 minutes. And I have a whole thing in Vegan Under Pressure on making stock, what you want to put in, what you want to leave out. And I was watching somebody do a cooking thing online and he was like, here's my box stock. And I thought, I'm never paying $3 for a box of stock.
Yeah.
I had all the makings to make stock. I'm going to make stock. And when I have leftover, I put it in ice cube trays. I put it in the freezer. I have it ready when I need it. I use it for cooking. What else? I do desserts in there. Poached red wine, poached pears are amazing. If you don't drink wine, you can do apple juice. I mean, rice pudding, quinoa pudding, all kinds of things. I mean, there isn't anything that I won't try in there. Polenta is amazing in the pressure cooker.
That
Absolutely amazing. And you don't have to do anything. If people like risotto's really easy. I don't make a lot of risotto because it's white rice and I actually haven't sprung for the money to buy the brown arborio rice. Because I don't love rice dishes that much that I want to do that. But it's totally doable. And so if you can eat gluten, you can make farro, which is farro risotto. It's delicious. You can do it with barley. I don't eat gluten, so I don't eat those. You can do it with whole oat groats, which I do.
Okay.
Yeah. And so there's nothing that, doesn't go in.
You're right. I forgot about the vegetables. I forgot about broccoli. We will get the broccoli from the farm, especially because it's just so much better than grocery store. But like when it's time to harvest broccoli, my husband will come home and we will just throw like multiple heads in there, however many we can fit, and then just put it on 1 minute and that quick release. And like I have done a whole head of cauliflower and a whole head of broccoli the same way too. And it's just like, then we just pull it apart and like dip it in ever sauce.
And people, I want people to know that you can also on some pots set it to 0. There's 2 things. You can set it to low pressure if you're concerned about overcooking, and you can set it to 0. So I have a quicker soak for beans that uses low pressure and 0. But not every pot will do it. I have one Instant Pot that does not go to 0. So it's just like that.
And it literally is an Instant Pot. Like it's that brand, right? Like,
it's an Instant Pot brand. It's very different. I think I forgot. It's an EVO or something. It has handles.
Okay.
And it doesn't have handle holders. It's just a little bit different. I really do like it a lot, except it doesn't go to 0.
Wow.
So what I do then is I set it, I can't walk away. I set it for 1. And when it gets to pressure, I turn off the pot. It's the same as 0. So there's a lot of little tricks like that, but it's really easy to use. But I think the biggest concern for most people is they tend to overcook their food because they think, oh yeah, I'll just throw everything in there. Well, that's great if you want soup or you want dips or you want mush. But if you really want your food to turn out well, you should have recipes that will guide you through the process so that I'm very particular about my food turning out how I want my food.
Yeah.
I don't want to go through the process and be like, oh, that's not good, because I do love making veggie burgers and I do love dips and I do love soup. But when I want my white beans with greens and lemon to turn out perfectly, I want it turning out perfectly. I don't
Yeah.
want it to be something else.
That sounds good. White beans and greens with lemon.
Oh, it's
Yum.
so good. It's a fabulous winter dish. It's so good for you and incredibly edible.
Yeah. Oh, good. I need to get this. Okay. So vegan under pressure. I might get that for my parents for Christmas. I just keep trying so very hard to coax them into eating more plants.
Well,
And
you know, don't stop trying. You
I
know,
won't. I
it
convinced them to
comes,
get an Instapot.
it comes when it comes, and that's the whole thing. And like I said, my husband kind of has been dragging his feet, but he's getting there. And I just, you know, some people get so discouraged. I'm like, you just have to look at the little steps forward and go,
Yeah.
oh, you know, he now loves his smoothies. Like 10 years ago, he'd be like, smoothie, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just like those little things. And I think it's the reinforcement of that, you know, that really helps, like with little kids, right? If you say ew, they're gonna say ew. So you say
Yeah.
yum, and they're like, oh, maybe yum.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
know. Yeah, for sure.
like the
Absolutely. Oh
parents
gosh.
are
Those are
no
good.
different. The parents, the husbands, the partners, they're no different.
No, truly. And for me, for my husband, it was really him learning the science. Like once he had really no choice because like through the multiple certifications that I've gotten, like he would come home from his corporate job and I would be listening to them, you know, the videos and stuff, and like regarding cancer and regarding, you know, heart disease and all of that stuff. And he's like, wow. And then right when our son was born, it was really like, he was just like, okay, this is, you know, I want to be alive, you know,
Yeah.
for as
Yeah.
long
Well,
as
my son grew up plant-based,
awesome.
really amazing.
Yes.
One of his favorite things was sweetie potatoes, which were just sweet potatoes. And my husband's like, you eat those? I'm like, yeah.
Oh my
He
so
grew up
funny.
on a very, what I would call, white bread diet.
Oh yeah.
And so he never knew this food, and he's still just learning
Yeah.
after all
Yeah.
these years.
It's been a
Yeah.
lot of, yeah, same with my husband for sure. It's just been a lot of like reconditioning and re-understanding like, oh, this is food. That's not, that's actually not food, but they've made
Right.
it seem like it is somehow. Okay, Jill, I have a question before we wrap this up, because I think that we have a good, well-rounded conversation. We've inspired people to get an Instant Pot and to start eating food that is easy to make. We've talked about the importance of self-care. We know that you teach breathing. If there's any way that we can tap into that, I'm not sure. Maybe you do. Maybe you do.
It's on my website, which is
Okay.
thevegiequeen.com. So.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. And then we've talked about what eating well really means. And what was that called? Champs. Yeah.
Nutrition champs.
All right. Nutrition champs. And that's pretty holistic in my opinion. But this is the question. What does holistic living mean to you?
Oh, well, I mean, it's everything you do. Everything matters, all of it. You know, one of the things that I didn't mention in self-care is self-talk. Like I hear my husband say things to himself that I'm like, why would you say that? You know, I think as silly as it may seem, it's okay to say, I love myself, because that's what your brain hears. I love myself. Oh, I made a mistake. You know, the beans got overcooked. Oh, well, but I didn't say, oh, I am just so stupid. You know, like I don't let any of the people I care about say mean things to themselves. And so that's the holistic part, is like, it's all of you, like what you say, what you do, how you act, how you move throughout the world. You know, I believe it's kind of an idealistic belief. My husband's always like, yeah, you say you put love into the food. I'm like, I do. And so we need to be loving and caring and kind and compassionate. And I think that's the other thing about eating plants. I think that the more plants you eat, the more compassionate you get.
Yeah.
And I think this is the holistic thing, is like, it's not just one thing. Like, I'm not mean to you and nice to the next person. I want to be nice to everyone. I want to be kind to everyone. I want to be as loving as I can. And that's where it all comes from, because once my heart feels that love, and once my gut feels that love, my brain feels the love, and then it just keeps circulating.
And it goes out. It goes outward.
Goes out into the world, and it's interesting because it's things like this, like where we've met each other and we feel a resonance, and that resonance is real.
Yeah.
And so it's just an interesting thing. And I have a newsletter that I send out once to twice a month. And it's so heartening because I send it out to quite a number of people, and I always get, or almost always get, messages back. Thank you. Because even if I touch one person, I feel like I've done my work, because I want people to hear these messages over and over and over, because then we incorporate it. It's not just a one-time thing. Although I've had people come to talks I've done and they're like, I heard you and I'm doing this now. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, I just feel such love when they say that. It's so wonderful.
It's so amazing I love that you find so much joy in helping people. And like you said, just impacting one person. It's like my purpose. I know that, and I don't think it's self-fulfilling. I think it's just like once you realize that the way that you show up and the way that you take care of yourself can make such an impact on you, on your family, on everybody that you kind of come in contact with. And then that creates a ripple effect. Like, just go back to what we talked about kind of at the beginning of this, you guys, like, focus on self-care, focus on the capacity that you have to change a world, because you are prioritizing your holistic well-being, and practice all of the things that Jill is saying, and get into a breathing class with her, and get your Instapot and get the plants in your body. And just prioritize you. And it is not selfish.
Right. And I do want to add, don't try to do all those things at once. Take small steps, do something. And then a few weeks later, a month later, do something else, because it's not until we incorporate it and feel it that we can continue it. And the whole thing is we need our lives to be sustainable. And if you try to do too much, you generally fail. And then you're like, it didn't work. So we have to really give ourselves the permission to go slow. A friend sent me a little thing, and it said, go as fast as the slowest parts of you want to go. And I love that. And I have lived by that for many years. So I think it really gives us permission. We don't have to speed into everything. We have many, many days. We have many, many hours. Take it slow, do what you need to do, but don't forget about you.
So good. That's a perfect way to wrap it up, friend. Jill, you're amazing. We're going to put all of the links down in the show notes to connect with you. Is there we want to follow you, right? At the Veggie Queen on Instagram.
Yes. The Veggie Queen 1 on Instagram, the Veggie Queen on Facebook, and I'm on YouTube at the VQ. And in a perfect world, they'd all be the same, but I don't live in a perfect world yet. No. So
yeah. We're all on our way.
Yep. Thank you, Stacey. This was fabulous.
Thank you, Jill. You have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much.
You too. Bye-bye.